Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Facebook Live event. Thank you for joining us this evening. This is our second event, and I am Superintendent Jo Hall from Devon Cornwall Police. I will be your chair this evening, and I will be working with our partners and colleagues from a number of agencies to give you updates in relation to the forthcoming G7 event. So before we move on to those updates, I'd like to introduce the presenters and our colleagues this evening. From the Cabinet Office, we have Laura Perry and Joseph Potts. Thank you both. From Cornwall Council, we have Chief Executive Kate Canally. Thank you. We have the Director of Public Health Cornwall, Rachel Wigglesworth. Thank you. And from Devon Cornwall Police, we have Chief Superintendent Jim Pearce and Chief Inspector Russ Dorr. Thank you both. From GWR, we have Paul Gentleman. And finally, as you can see on our screen, we have BSL interpreter Carleen. Thank you for helping us this evening, Carleen. So the way this evening will run is each agency will provide you updates shortly, and I will be asking for questions at the end of all of those updates. We would welcome your questions in the comments bar. Could I ask you to start any questions with the word question and try, if you can, to keep those questions short and succinct. It will help us get to them and get the questions up on the screen. We expect this evening to take about 45 minutes, and our aim is to get in as many questions as we can and also try and get a variety of questions answered this evening for everybody. We have invited GWR this evening to the event. We have been informed this week that there will be some changes to the line in Carbis Bay. And so we've prepared for potential questions around that by inviting Paul. So please do ask any questions that GWR can help you with this evening. So I would like to move on now and invite our presenters one by one to give their updates. And once those updates have been provided, I will work through your questions and hopefully we can answer any concerns that you do have. So we'll start with the Cabinet Office, and I would like to invite Laura Perry and Joseph Potts, please.
Thank you, Jo, and good evening, everybody. My name is Laura, this is my colleague Joseph. We work in the central government organisation who are responsible for organising the G7 summit. And just to reassure you, we've been COVID tested to be here in the office today. We are delighted to be here again answering your questions and want to thank our colleagues at the police and the council for helping to set this up. Everyone that you will see on the meeting this afternoon, we have been working with very closely as we work towards preparing for the summit, and also many other partners across Cornwall. We don't want to repeat ourselves too much from what we said last time, but suffice to say we are really excited about welcoming world leaders down to this beautiful part of the UK in the summer, and we are extremely grateful to the local communities who are getting ready to host us. The G7 summit comes at a critical time for international relations, and leaders will be discussing some of the major issues facing the world today, including health, climate change and jobs. Since we last spoke, our negotiating teams have been working away behind the scenes on the policy, and we really hope that this summit will deliver some historic announcements on policy cooperation between the leaders on issues like pandemic preparedness and also the protection of nature.
And the Prime Minister was himself down in Cornwall last week, as some of you might have seen, to see some of the preparations for himself, while he was announcing the new £23 million town deal for Truro. And as part of that, he was also at the airports at Newquay, where he was seeing some of the works already underway as part of the £8 million investment we've made into supporting its role at the summit and its future transition to becoming Cornwall's spaceport. We, at the last session, discussed some of the other legacy projects, including tourism investment, profiling Cornish businesses internationally, our planned education and cultural programmes, and local environmental projects that we'll be investing in as part of our commitments to a carbon neutral summit. And we hope to have some more announcements on all of that very soon. We also discussed some of the planning going into ensuring that this is a completely COVID safe event, particularly with different international delegations travelling to the UK. We will answer all the questions that we can, and anything that we don't have answers for today, we'll take away and address soon as we're able to announce more details. But thank you all, and back to you, Jo.
Thank you both, that's great. I'd now like to invite the Chief Executive, Kate Canally, to provide us with an update from Cornwall Council, please.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you for joining us this evening on this Facebook Live event. So I want just to start by saying Cornwall is proud to have been chosen to host the G7 Summit, and we are looking forward to the opportunity to showcase our wonderful part of the world to a truly global audience. And as we've just heard from Laura and Joe, there are real and tangible benefits for us as hosts, from investment in our infrastructure to the economic boost for those businesses involved in the event itself, as well as we will see, I think, increases in visitors that will come with the publicity of hosting the G7, and the inward investment that we're very much hoping that we can attract into Cornwall following on from the summit. But tonight, I think it's important to be clear from the outset that with such a high-profile event, there will inevitably be some temporary disruption for those living in St Ives area, Falmouth, and around Newquay Airport. Because when you're hosting the leaders of some of the world's biggest economies, security is, of course, at the very forefront of everyone's minds, and those measures need to be robust enough to keep everyone safe. So, yes, there will be some temporary closure of roads and footpaths while the summit is underway. And yes, access to certain areas will be limited for a short time, as we'll hear further from the police. Schools in the St Ives area may revert to online learning for a few days to minimise the disruption to pupils and ensure they will not miss out on any learning. And indeed, we know already that St Ives School have taken this decision, and we know that other school leaders in the area are giving thought to this and may choose to do the same. What I can say in each of these circumstances, we will, along with our police and our Cabinet Office colleagues, engage with those affected to make sure the disruption is kept to a minimum. And where possible, continue to deliver the essential services that we know you rely on. So a couple of examples. If your bins are due to be collected on the Friday, they still will be. And if you require a visit from care workers, whether to offer support or for specific medical care, it will still happen. Our police colleagues will provide more information about their plans in due course. But I do know that residents' concerns have been at the heart of their planning. So once again, we are honoured to be hosting the G7. We're absolutely determined to ensure that the summit is a real success and leaves a positive legacy that benefits all of Cornwall. But I'd like to reassure all of our residents that although this is indeed a momentous occasion for Cornwall, Cornwall Council's absolute priority is, and always will be, to support our residents. And we'll be able to provide further details about how we will ensure the minimum of disruption to your daily lives as the plans are finalised. But I look forward to answering as many of your questions as I can this evening. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Now we'll move to the Director of Public Health for Cornwall, Rachel Wigglesworth, please.
Thank you. Good evening. So as Kate said, the G7 summit is clearly an opportunity for Cornwall, but it will bring with it its own set of specific issues for us to manage, especially as it's clearly being held in the midst of a global pandemic. So we understand that people will have concerns, and we're happy to address them here and outside. Our key priority is and always will be protecting the health and safety of our residents here in Cornwall, and that will be and is at the front of our planning in the build up to the event, as it has been throughout the pandemic. So luckily we're dealing with we're used to dealing with large numbers of visitors arriving with us in Cornwall at specific times, particularly at the height of our tourist season. But we have been busy working with our partners to identify all the possible risks and how to mitigate them. And we're thinking not just about the delegates, but also the media attending, the extra police officers required, and all the other measures that might be needed for the benefit of our local community. And as I've previously explained, some decisions will have to be made closer to the time of the G7 event based on our local evidence and the COVID-19 case numbers at the time. The public health team monitors a whole variety of data sources daily that help us understand what's happening with the virus. And this knowledge, alongside some of the bespoke measures that we're planning to to introduce will help make the event as safe as possible. And we're ensuring that delegates and everyone associated with the event follow whatever guidance and entry requirements have been agreed and are in place nationally at the time, and do all we can to ensure there's no detrimental effect on our residents. So thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. I would now like to welcome Paul Gentleman from GWR to provide an update for us.
Thank you, Jo, and a very good evening, everyone. From my less salubrious surroundings of my back bedroom, as many of people are working from home these days, I'm no exception. I'm coming live to you from Swindon, the spiritual home of the Great Western Railway. And I just want to start off by saying that Great Western Railway are absolutely proud and privileged to be supporting the G7 event. We understand its prominence. And we want to make sure that it does turn out to be the massive showcase for not only UK PLC, but especially Cornwall. We're doing lots of things to help support the event. We've got a major timetable change coming up in May, which will help support those tourist numbers that we are expecting to start to travel down to that part of the world. And we want to make sure that we are serving the event and the residents of Cornwall in the best way possible. And it's a real privilege to be here tonight to talk to you about it. However, as we've heard from Kate at Cornwall Council, there will need to be some changes and there will need to be some discomfort, if you like, for how we actually operate some of our train services. As the principal train operator into Cornwall, and especially on the picturesque St Ives branch line, we're conscious that we want to make sure these changes are kept to a minimum and we can carry on serving the communities, the businesses, and also the important tourist trade. But what it will mean as we approach this important event is that there will need to be some major changes on the St Ives branch line. We know it's a key rail route, but it will mean that unfortunately for the period of the summit and some days before and at least one day afterwards, we will not be able to run any trains on the St Ives branch line. So that covers from St Earth to St Ives. So what we will be doing is we'll be putting in a rail replacement bus service to help serve those communities. Now, this will be a varying pattern of those services, and that's because of the various road closures that will be taking place during the course of the summit and in the build up to the summit. But what we want to make sure is that when we plan these rail replacement services, we can continue to serve the people along that route, as well as the people in the wider network as well. And it doesn't just affect the St Ives branch line. We're also strengthening our services along the Falmouth branch line to ensure that that is a very busy line already, and we want to make sure that we've got enough capacity there with social distancing in place, and so we will be putting on a rail replacement service to support and supplement the existing train service. And it's all about making sure that we keep the communities and the people moving, as well as assisting with the actual movement of people around the summit, whether it's tourists who have already booked their holiday break, or people who are just curious to come and visit. But we want to make sure that we keep people moving and that we showcase Cornwall to be the beautiful place that we all know and love. And I think that's it from me for the moment. Thank you, Jo, and I welcome your questions later on tonight.
Thank you, Paul. And finally, we've got two representatives from Devon and Cornwall Police today, but our update is going to be provided by Chief Superintendent Jim Pearce, please.
Thank you, Jo. Good evening, everybody. I'm the policing commander for Cornwall. The last time I spoke to you, I explained that Devon and Cornwall Police were in charge of the policing and security of the G7 event, with the responsibility being devolved to our Chief Constable, Sean Sawyer. I'm pleased to say that this planning is well on track, and we have significant numbers of people working very hard in the background, liaising with our colleagues from the council and government offices. So the scale of this event is such that we will not be able to police it without the help of other police forces, and in particular officers from the southwest region. But I will say the same as I did last time, command and control sits firmly with Devon and Cornwall Police commanders, and the style of policing will be very much dictated by those commanders from our force. So in terms of help, some numbers for you. We will be deploying over 5,500 police officers, and this will require over 100,000 meals during the week and 100 accommodation bases just to house them all. We will significantly be increasing our specialist skills, whether that be maritime, firearms, search or public order capability. And let's not forget police dogs. We'll have over 100 visiting us during the week, of course with their dog handlers. In order to ensure that everybody knows what they're doing, we are preparing a significant testing programme which is due to start in the next couple of weeks. So you may see us out and about a lot more, whether on land or at sea. So tonight's focus is mainly about the changes and restrictions that will occur, especially around the localities of the venue. I can say that everything possible is being done to ensure that Falmouth and St Ives town centres will remain largely open during the summit. The three venues, of course, Carbis Bay, Tregenna Castle, Falmouth Maritime Museum, will be closed to members of the public. It's an obvious statement, I guess. But it is true to say that the closer you live to these venues, the more likely that there will be some disruption due to the security. We're working hard to ensure that it isn't for too long a period, nor too restrictive. And you will recall last time that I mentioned that road closures will be revealed in early May, and this is still the case. Traffic management plans are being written and will be shared as soon as we're able to. But I will share now that we are keen to keep the roads open for as long as possible, and we don't expect any road to be closed for longer than 4 days, and we will minimise this where possible. Fencing, particularly around the 4 official venues, will be in place to ensure that security is enhanced. And some of this fencing may actually look quite impactve, but I'll reassure you that it will only be in place for as long as is absolutely necessary. Now, some communities will know by now that the harbour restrictions, or some harbour restrictions, have been applied for. And I will be the first to admit there's been some confusion around the release of this information, for which I will, on behalf of those partners that were involved in the application, apologise for. I can say that the restrictions will hopefully be minimal, and that they are only looking to restrict commercial and pleasure craft from travelling towards Carbis Bay, not towards the open sea or any other direction. If you require further information, then we can of course supply this to you. There are a number of similar frequently asked questions on our website, which has gone live today, and I encourage you to review that. The website address is at the bottom of the screen. I would also like to reiterate the messages that you've already heard, in that planning is complex, but it does genuinely have the residents of Cornwall at its centre. But if you don't feel that, then please get in touch. Thank you, and I look forward to answering your questions tonight also. Thank you, Jo.
Thank you. Okay, so that is the updates from all of our agencies here this evening. So it's now my job to coordinate the questions that you are asking. So we will move straight on to questions. And the first question is from Phil Northcott. The G7 in Scotland reported 2,500 press in attendance. I believe the plan is for them to be accommodated in the Falmouth area. How will their transport be arranged between the towns, as that journey has several bottlenecks? Cheers, Phil. Thank you, Phil. So in relation to the media centre, Jo and Laura, I wonder whether you can help us with this.
Yes, happy to. So in relation to the media centre, this will be quite different to the media centre that was run for past G7s, including the one in Glen Eagles back in 2005 that you refer to. For starters, we won't have anywhere near as many media attending as that particular number. It'll be quite strongly limited from that. And that's something we've been communicating very clearly to media to manage their expectations. As you say, media will be based at the International Media Centre in Falmouth, and we're expecting that the majority of media will be staying in Falmouth. And we're arranging the media coverage so that they can cover the summit fully from there, so they can remotely access the goings on at Carbis Bay, so we don't need to transport large numbers of media between the two sites. where a smaller number of media might need to be transported between the two sites. We'll be laying on official transport for that and making sure that that's coordinated with any road closures and avoiding busy traffic times so that we're not clogging up the roads, as you say, and having a minimal impact there. The other thing I'll just note with media is we are recommending to media that they use UK-based correspondence where possible as well, obviously just to try and ensure that everything is COVID compliant. And we expect media to, in fact, we require media to adhere with all COVID guidelines as they stand in June.
Okay, thank you, Joe. That's really helpful. So we'll move on to our next question, which is from Tish Berriman. When will providers who provide care to vulnerable people in the area, both private, ASC and health, be informed how we will be able to get to our clients, and can the carers drive to them? This needs answering soon, as rotas need preparing and clients need reassuring as they are worried. I wonder whether Kate could help us with this one from the council.
Yeah, yes, I can. Thank you. And thanks very much, Tish, for your question. And I did make the point in my opening remarks around the absolute importance of our plans around making sure that for those most vulnerable that live in Cornwall, is that our priority will be to ensure that they can deliver care. So we'll be working across with the police and our security colleagues around giving information around what we expect in terms of the people that need to have access and to get the support that they require. We heard as well that the traffic management plans will be clearer and finalised in the next kind of couple of weeks. So my expectation is that from early May onwards, we'll be in a position to start our explicit engagement across with our many different care providers, and through our work with our social work teams and with our relationships with our health colleagues, be able to start giving some of those reassuring messages around what the G7 summit means for people who are reliant on care coming into their own homes. So early May, with the finalisation of the traffic management plans, but at the moment providers should work on the basis that they will continue to deliver the essential care that people need. I hope that answers your question, Tish.
Thank you, Kate. Okay, so Aaron Kelly is asking us, what impact will other countries' security detail have on the area? And I wonder whether Joe and Laura, are you able to assist with that in the first instance?
Yes, I mean, this is something that we will be working with the police on. I think the point with other countries' security details is they will be quite small and very much based on the leaders themselves. So really, when we're talking about the security presence at the site, it's mostly about Devon and Cornwall Police and the security operation that they're running. When you're talking about security detail from other countries, they're really just based on protecting their leaders. So wouldn't have any contact or really any impact on the local area. So I don't know if it might be better for police to pick up on the broader security points, but as I say, security details from leaders would be a very minimal impact.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, I'll just bring Russ in here, just in case there's anything for Russ to add. So welcome, Russ. You're one of our lead planners for the security of the event. The question was around any foreign security that was coming in. Is there anything you want to add to that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, the individuals that are coming in are protected persons. They will bring as Joe has already explained, they'll bring a small detail of security with themselves. But the majority of security and the security convoys that you'll see will be led by the Royal and Specialist Protection teams within our own country security teams. So the planning is primarily working with Royal and Specialist Protection to supply that security detail to look after the world leaders when they're with us, and obviously working very closely with the FCDO as well to link in with the various countries.
Lovely. Thank you, Russ. That's great. So our next question then is from Janet Jones. Is it correct that the delegates will not have COVID testing as exempt under government ruling? And I'll go back to the Cabinet Office team if I can, please, because I believe that you may be able to help with this.
Thank you, yes, and thank you for asking the question, because it's a really important one for us to be very clear on. All participants in the summit will absolutely have to test both before they travel into the UK, and they'll have to demonstrate that they have a negative test before coming in. And then there will also be regular daily testing, again, for all participants during the summit itself. So there will be a full testing regime every single day for all participants with no exceptions. So I hope that is reassuring, and yeah, we're keen to communicate that as early as possible.
Thank you, Laura. And I wonder, is there anything that Rachel, Public Health Cornwall, is there anything that you could add to that?
Thank you. So clearly, in terms of sort of the wider community and people that are actually sort of servicing and supporting the event as well, we're, as part of offering rapid tests to the whole community, we're going to be promoting and ensuring that the uptake in the people working and related to that sector who aren't formally part of the event, but maybe living nearby, etc., have access to that rapid testing so that we can continue the work that we've been doing in Cornwall to contact trace any cases and make sure that we keep our cases low and people safe. So all of the work that we've been doing over the whole year in Cornwall will continue to do, but clearly with an emphasis on that particular area, and any visitors are clear about how they can also access testing.
Thank you, Rachel. And it's also something that is being considered by the police in relation to the officers that we've got joining us down in force as well. So again, all the agencies are considering that necessity around COVID testing and making sure that we keep our communities safe. Thank you. Keith Nash Kev Bales is next. Will the G7 have any impact on policing elsewhere in the county, or will this be maintained? If I could bring Jim and Russ in here, don't fight to answer it, but I'll bring you both in and perhaps you can both help out.
So the short answer, Joe, is that we're doing everything possible so that what we would call business as usual, so the work that we would expect to be doing, it isn't impacted because of the event. The reality is, of course, there will be some impact because we are having to use a degree of resource that will be looking to support. But the planning, particularly now, is allowing us to ensure that we've got enough people that will be within the communities outside of the venue towns to deal with the expected demand that we would normally be dealing with at this time of the year under those reasons. So there is a whole force approach to this. This isn't just about Cornwall dealing with Cornwall issues. Officers from Devon, so from Plymouth, Exeter and so on, will also be around into the county to support and vice versa as well, because we are expecting that, and I've mentioned before about protests, they may not just occur within Cornwall, they may happen in Exeter or Plymouth or otherwise as well, and again our thinking and our planning will take that into account. Russ, I don't know whether you want to add to that.
Yeah, I think just from a planning perspective, we're really keen that this is led by Devon and Cornwall Police, that the communities that we police, it's our style of policing, it's engagement with the communities, and it's making sure that those that are visiting or are part of the G7 see that it is Devon and Cornwall Police that are involved in it. So not only are we going to be focused on delivering business as usual, but actually this operation will be led by Devon and Cornwall Police, as Mr. Pearce already highlighted at the beginning.
Thank you, gents. That's really helpful. So we have Tina Barton next. Will my elderly mother, who lives in between the Carbis Bay Hotel and Tregenna Castle, still be able to go on her daily walk? And I think this probably relates to road closures. So, Russ, I wonder if I can come back to you in relation to this, and then perhaps we'll see whether there's anything that Kate wants to add from the council.
Yeah, and as been highlighted, there is going to be some disruption and there are going to be road closures. But actually, when we talk about the communities being able to walk about, that there will be pedestrian barriers that will be in place, and there will be a different look and feel. But actually, during those key times when we keep that road open, then yes, people will be able to move about and will be able to take those daily walks between those two locations. But we have to bear in mind there will be some disruption, there will be some road closures, and that may well include some pedestrian ways as well. But wherever possible, we will try to keep those locations open.
Thank you, Russ. And Kate, is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
No, I think just other than reiterating the commitment that as soon as we are clear around the traffic management plans, we will be communicating that particularly to those residents in affected areas. So please do keep checking on the Devon and Cornwall website. The address has been scrolling at the bottom of your screens, because that's going to be a key place that we update and keep you informed. What we are expecting is that people will absolutely still be able to walk about. We want people to not be trapped in their own homes during this time, but some of the routes may be restricted, and it will be that information that we'll be wanting to communicate with you as those plans are finalised.
Thank you both. Anna next. How much will St Earth Station be affected by G7? So Paul, if I can bring you back in here, please. How much will St Earth Station be affected by G7?
Well, St Earth is going to be a very key location for the railway network, because obviously it's the interchange for where people will get the rail replacement service to travel to St Ives and the other destinations. It's also going to be the centre of a lot of police activity, in so much as the car park there is going to be utilised for police vehicles and various other security reasons. So the actual station area is going to be very busy itself. We will ourselves have quite a few colleagues there who will be helping people to make their onward journeys, whether that's coming into St Earth for onward travel, or arriving at St Earth for travel onto the branch line. So it will be a very busy station. The car parks will be very busy indeed, in terms of being used for reasons other than parking cars, because they'll be used for welfare facilities for not only for us, but also for the police and various other security elements that are going to be put there. We want to keep disruption to a minimum in that area, and keep the impact on the community there to a minimum, but expect St Earth to be a very, very busy station indeed.
Thank you, Paul. So we've probably got about 10 minutes or so left, so we will keep going on with the questions, so please pop them in the question bar if you have them. The next question is from David Raymer. The direct road from Falmouth comes through Helston and Hale. Will the route taken be on the major roads via Penzance or Redruth, and not on the smaller roads that go through the outskirts of Hale? So I think you may be referring to, David, perhaps the route that the delegates are taking. So I'll pull in Russ here if I can. Russ, could you help with that question, please?
Yeah, so that forms part of that traffic management plan around how we're going to move, or how the Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office are going to be transporting those individuals from Falmouth over across to Carbis Bay. As Joseph has already indicated, this isn't significant numbers of press, but they will be transported highly likely in coaches or the smaller coaches. With regard to the exact route, that still forms part of the traffic management plan, and alongside the Carbis Bay and Ives plan, it will form part of that wider plan, which we will share as soon as it's been agreed and signed off by all parties involved.
Thank you, Russ. Aaron Kelly, how much will this cost the taxpayer? Laura and Joseph, could I call you in here, please?
Thanks for the question. Yeah, we're not able to give a kind of overall figure at this stage. We're still working through all the plans and all the cost implications. I think what I would reassure people on the line is that it's central government that bear all the costs, including for the policing that we're speaking about today. That will all come out of a central budget and not local budgets, and the same for works impacting the council. And then obviously, in terms of our wider legacy, some of that investment is being spent back in the Cornish community, improvement works and infrastructure, which we touched on, and other legacy projects, which we're announcing soon around education and culture and climate and environment as well. So more news to follow on what other investments we've got to announce.
Lovely, thank you both. Kev Bales then, will the G7 have any impact on policing elsewhere in the county, or will this be maintained? I think we've had this question, Christian. Are you trying to catch me out? Just wait for the next question there. Okay, Katie Harris then. Will St Uni Primary School in Carbis Bay have to close over the period? If not, how will you manage the parents and teachers needing to access the school? Kate, you were helping us with schools earlier. I wonder whether you could help us with this one, please.
Yes, so where we are at the moment is that we, through security considerations, are not requiring, as I understand it, any schools to close. But some schools are taking the decision that because of some of the disruption for pupils getting to schools, that in order to maximise learning time, that they will be wanting to offer a remote learning experience during the case of the summit. So we know that St Ives School has already taken that decision, and school leaders in the affected area, I know, are giving consideration to this. So it will be down to the schools to make that decision and to then communicate with parents and pupils. Cornwall Council, our education team, are working closely across with those schools and making sure that we get out timely communications. We're very conscious at the moment that young people have had quite a disrupted education experience already this year due to the pandemic, and we want to make sure that that disruption to learning is minimised wherever possible. So we know that when schools are making these decisions and giving consideration to it, they are wanting to do that to maximise opportunities for learning and to minimise disruption for young people.
Thank you, Kate. And our next question from Dawn Norris. Will any of the St Ives beaches be closed? Russ, could you help us with this one, please? Will any of the St Ives beaches be closed?
Okay, yeah, I can. So it is anticipated that as part of the security operation, Carbis Bay Beach will close in order to form part of that cordon for the security of the G7 conference. All other beaches at the moment, with regard to planning, are open. There may be some restrictions in order to access those beaches in line with the traffic management plan. But at the moment, the planning that I'm working to are that no other beaches are closed as part of the G7 conference, only Carbus Bay.
Lovely, thank you, Russ. Kate, from a Cornwall Council perspective, is there anything that you'd like to say in relation to beach closures, or are you content with what Russ has just helped with?
No, I think Russ has covered it. Thank you, Jo.
Lovely. Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to our next question then. Do Devon and Cornwall Police have their own style, or is it the same as other forces? So I'll bring Jim Pearce in here to start with, and then if we need to get Russ in to help, we can do so.
Yeah, thank you, Jo. So I've worked in a couple of different forces, and I would suggest that Devon and Cornwall definitely has its own style, in that it's very neighbourhood police focused. We are engaged wholly with our communities. We work very closely with them, particularly through our neighbourhood teams, our PCSOs, special constables, in linking into those community members. And we're very, very proud that we have a number of officers that have worked in towns and have been brought up and lived with those people for a number of years. We also know that where we have gone to support other forces for similar type events, so where we have actually sent our staff to go on to deal, whether it be in London and more recently in Bristol, we always receive excellent feedback about the way that our staff communicate with not just the police officers that they're working with, but with the communities that they're dealing with at that period of time. And that's because, you know, this is what we're used to. We're used to talking to communities and dealing with conflict and issues in a way that is perhaps different that you might see within a metropolitan force or otherwise. So when we have police officers that come to support us, they will be spoken to by police commanders. There's a briefing pack that will be going to them, and some of the things that we will be talking to them about very much is about our Devon and Cornwall policing style, which we are extremely proud of. Thank you, Jo.
Thank you. Russ, I'll leave it there because I think that question was clearly answered, so we won't call on you at the moment. We'll move to Drew Scott. Are hotels like St Ives Harbour Hotel closed to the public over that weekend? And if so, from what date? Kate, from a council perspective, are you able to help with that at all?
So my understanding is that we are not looking at those hotels being closed to the public during that time. But please, policing colleagues, if I've given duff information, please come back and make sure I'm correct.
Let's welcome Russ back then. Russ, is there anything you can add in relation to that? Is the St Ives Harbour Hotel, for example, going to be closed on that weekend?
No. With regard to any closures, no. The only the key venues will be closed, obviously, to host the G7. But no, there's no intention to request any other locations or hotels to close.
Lovely. Thanks for the clarity, Russ. Okay. Next question then from Zoe Louise Crow. Will food shopping and courier deliveries be allowed during the closure of St Ives Road? Walk-in access to Tesco. I think this links to our road closure issue, so I wonder whether I can bring Russ back in here, please.
So, so the road closures for those specific couriers deliveries, then access will be allowed during periods, but I can't guarantee at the moment that for every delivery that anybody has that we're going to be able to allow people to come in and out. We know that closures are going to occur. Key health and well-being, as Kate has highlighted, will be given access. That will be supported through the council and through an accreditation process. But actually, during those key periods of time, our aim is to highlight when those closures are going to be. And I would ask the community to minimise any delivery slots or issues along those lines during that period. So as when we know the road closures are in place, I'd ask for the community support not to encourage those sort of deliveries to occur during those peak periods, because otherwise we are going to have issues around with those closures and allowing people through. We have to have an accreditation and a vetting process to allow those through during the closures and the key in times, but we can't allow general access for everybody.
Thank you, Russ. So we'll just take a couple more questions. We have filled the 45 minutes we were planning for. So if I just take a couple more questions. Janet Jones is asking, if delegates test positive for COVID, do you have plans in place for where they isolate, please? Joseph and Laura, could you help us with that one?
Certainly. Yeah, I can confirm that if delegates did test positive, then they would be required to isolate. We can confirm in due course exactly where that would be, but given that delegates will have officially arranged accommodation for them, it would be likely that they would self-isolate there. So in other words, well away from any members of the general public.
Lovely, thank you both. So next question, please. From Lisa Rowe, inevitably there will be increased crime in the area. How are you preparing to communicate to the public to alert them to increased threats to the area? If I can bring Jim Pearce back in here, please.
I don't want to sound too flippant, but with 5,500 police officers in the council, I'm extremely hopeful that crime's going to be fairly respectable during that week. But having said that, we and realistically, in terms of protests particularly, which is something that's on our minds, we are expecting, as I've mentioned at the last session, peaceful and organised protest. It may be that with some of the issues around that particular subject, and this is going to be a future Facebook Live session, there will be some instances of arrest, and in which case we've got significant plans in order to deal with arrest and taking those away into the custody centres and dealing with them appropriately through the criminal justice system. With regard to other crime types, there is a detailed review of what has gone on with this type of event in other areas. So we're learning from those places, and we will deal with those types of potential increase in terms of the way that we develop our intelligence and put our specialist skills towards prevention as opposed to reactive issues. I would say that if you're interested in that type of thing and you want to keep in touch with us, then our DC Crime Alert service which is something that you can sign up to via our website, is a great place to start. So if you sign up to that, then we can be able to send out crime prevention advice and other things along those lines. Thank you, Joe.
And is there anybody that wants to come in to help us with regards to any issues on the trains? Paul, is that something you can help with?
Yeah, thank you, Joe. I think it's also worth pointing out that as well as the boost to the Devon and Cornwall Police and the amount of police officers that will be out and about, there will be a substantial presence by British Transport Police, not only at stations but also travelling on our trains. We're very keen to ensure that those people who are travelling with us feel safe. We obviously recognise that the event is going to attract a huge amount of people in terms of different types of people. As Jim's already touched on, there will be protesters who will be travelling from around the country coming to this location, and we want to make sure that that any antisocial behaviour that's on board trains is, if you like, nipped in the bud, and there will be a presence by British Transport Police at stations and on board our trains throughout the event.
Thank you, Paul. That's helpful. So I think we'll take two more questions then, and then we will wrap up. So, will properties in Carbis Bay be asked to cancel holiday bookings? Is there an access pass system put in place? What happens if emergency access is required? Dribbling about policing styles and talking about the Metropolitan Police is irrelevant to what this live stream is for, to provide open discussion about the summit. So I think the questions are at the start of that. Russ, can I bring you in there as a start, and then maybe we can invite Jim to follow?
Yeah, so those properties that are affected by the security operation, so by the fence line or the close proximity to the venues, are going to be having direct contact with officers and members of the FCDO, just to discuss what that looks like moving forward. That will include holiday properties as well, and I appreciate that some of those properties are already rented out. At the moment, there is likely to be a form of accreditation and vetting for those properties that are inside the secure line. But as I say, those that are immediately affected by the event will be visited by officers and by members of local government to talk through the effect that has and the impact it could have on them as residents or holiday makers. But certainly at the moment, nothing is closed to booking, but it's the impact that the event may have on that location.
And from a policing perspective, we are being really transparent around this, aren't we, and the impact, and we've got some local work ongoing. So I wonder if we can bring Jim Pearce in here just to provide some extra context around how we're working really closely with communities.
Look, I get the sense of feeling from some of the comments that have come in on the Facebook site that we're purposely withholding information, or we're trying to keep things secret, or we're just not sharing enough. I have to say that we are trying to share what we can do at the right time. We've spoken a lot today about traffic management plans, about road closures. We've tried to give you a little bit more information this week about the fact that road closures will hopefully be no longer than 4 days, not for 2 weeks. I've heard that in the community and so on. But what we're not able to do, it's just not possible at this stage in the planning, is to give you exact details to say it's going to be road closures will be shut either all day or for certain times of the day or otherwise. So we're trying to get this balance, and this is all agencies, whether it's the government, the police, or the local council. We're trying to get this balance of giving you information that you're really asking for, and I really hear that. Versus the fact that the planning processes have to run its course in order to get that information. So we are being as transparent as possible. We are working really hard to develop our engagement channels. We've given you some methods tonight that you can contact us on. We've got frequently answered questions on our website, and I know the council are developing similar. But if there's some really strong issues that you feel that we're not addressing properly, then please contact us, and we'll make sure that one of these sessions is really focused on that particular issue, and we'll do our best to answer that in more detail. But as we get closer to the time, more information will be released. I can make that promise.
Thank you both. And I'd like to take us to our last question now, if I can, please. Rebecca's asking, what legacy will the G7 leave for our children? Because this was a promise made during the 2012 Olympics. Cornwall still has young children practicing gymnastics in old industrial estate buildings and no full-size swimming pool or stadium. So I think I will call in Joseph and Laura first, and then see if Kate's got anything she wishes to add, please.
Thank you. Yes, this is a really exciting part of the programme for us, how we can engage young people. You may have already seen that the children of Truro Cathedral Choir recorded a song celebrating the G7. We're working with the Department for Education and also with Cornwall Council on exactly what the sort of education engagement programme. We're looking at things like hosting a model G7 type event as part of the programme. And we also have the Youth 7 engagement group, which is leading lots of other exciting activity. And I do recommend you look them up on social media. But I will pass over to Kate, who can talk a bit more about some of the youth programmes that we already have planned.
Great, thanks very much. When we heard that the Leaders' Summit was going to be held in Cornwall, we kind of thought quite long and hard about actually what did we want this to mean in terms of a legacy for young people, because it's a fantastic opportunity for us to be hosting kind of world leaders to inspire this generation through a really engaging youth programme, connecting young people even more so with the big global issues that the G7 is going to be considering, and helping them feel proud of being part of global Cornwall. So there's a number of different elements that we're building into this. So we are wanting a commitment to feature Cornwall's children and young people in the official G7 programme, and that's through doing a number of different things. We're going to have children and people in Cornwall coming together to develop their manifesto on what's important to them for that to be considered as part of the G7. We want to absolutely showcase the work of the young climate ambassadors that we have here in Cornwall. Cornwall is wanting to lead the discussions and the debate around climate change, and our young people are essential to that. And we know that that's going to be a big feature of the discussions at the G7. We want very much to feature some of the achievements of of Cornwall's children. We've heard there from Laura about some of the work that's been going on in the cathedral, but we want to feature Cornwall's young composers and musicians, with choirs being involved in the event. And we want the media team to help support young people to participate in reporting the events from their perspective. So those are some examples of some of the engagement that we want to do with young people during this. But you asked a wider question around facilities and as part of the discussions that we're having on legacy, and we will talk more about those longer term legacy investments at a subsequent Facebook Live event. We're in some really positive and productive conversations with the Cabinet Office around what are some of the investments that can be made in Cornwall that have only been possible because we've hosted the G7. Discussions taking place with number 10 on a range of different initiatives at the moment, and we hope very much to be able to share those with you in future Facebook Live sessions once we've dotted the I's and crossed the T's, and we've the ink is dry on the agreement. So watch this space.
Thank you, Kate. That's really exciting stuff. So that I'm going to draw it to a close now. We have used more than our time. I hope you'll appreciate we've answered a variety of questions there. I would just like to say thank you to our presenters today. So I'll just talk you through them. So thank you for our Cabinet Office colleagues, Laura and Joseph.
Thank you.
Cornwall Council, Kate Kennelly. Thank you. Public Health Cornwall, Rachel Wigglesworth. From the police, we had Chief Superintendent Jim Pearce and Russ Dorr. And GWR, Paul Gentleman. Thank you, everybody. And thank you to Carleen, our BSL interpreter. I know we've had some really positive feedback in the comments in relation to our approach as a partnership. So thank you for that. Please keep the feedback coming. These events will continue, so watch out on our Facebook pages for the next dates. and we look forward to answering your questions then. Thank you, everybody, and good night.